Every year, FRC releases a new game manual, and with that comes a bunch of new changes related to the game specifically. But there's also generally a lot of changes to so-called Evergreen rules, or the rules that stay and persist year on year. In this video, I'm going to break down all the small changes to the so-called Evergreen rules that your team should be aware of as you go into the FRC rebuild season. Previously, you could because of that transitionary period. I'm Coach Pratt, and I've been teaching robotics and design for over a decade now. And the goal of this video is to help teams that are experienced in FRC to be able to go through and say, hey, what has changed from last year to this year, so that you don't have to go through and read the entire full manual, although still a good idea to read through that, but so you can focus more on the game-specific rules for this season and less on worrying about if you might have missed something to help you save you a little bit of time. First, something that's important to note as you read through these rules is if it's not mentioned explicitly, I don't really assume. This happened a lot to myself included. In the FTC season this year and that previous season, some things have been rules for a long time that are no longer a rule. So one of the big changes that's happened this year from Reefscape to Rebuilt is changing to the match timings themselves. So in Reefscape, the entire match was 230 seconds. But this year, the entire match is now 240 seconds. And they changed it up by adding an additional 5 seconds in both auto and in teleop. So auto, rather than being 15 seconds, is now 20 seconds long, and teleop, rather than being 215, is now 220. There's also been a pretty big change to how much fouls count this season. Last season, a minor foul was 2 points and a major foul was 6 points. However, now a minor foul is 5 points and major foul is 15 points. So that's a +3 and +9 differential total. There's also no limit, with a small caveat, to the game piece control limit that you're allowed. So last season, you're allowed 1 piece of coral, 1 piece of algae. This season, you have no limit on the amount of fuel that you're allowed to pick up. Fuel is those game pieces, the balls themselves. You have no limit on what it is you're allowed to pick up, except for you're allowed to start with 8 preloaded game pieces during autonomous. So that is a bit of a point there. So I've broken this down into things like robot construction, bumper rules, game event rules, and then some super minor changes that you should be aware of. So one of the big changes in robot construction in the rebuild season is that your robot size is down. It needs to be quite a bit smaller. So your starting perimeter has to be 110 inches. And your height is capped at 30 inches for the entire game. You cannot expand vertically beyond 30 inches regardless of timing in the game. At any point in time, 30 is a hard cap. This is down from 120 inches perimeter, as well as a 42-inch vertical expansion limit in Reefscape, at least at the starting point. I believe it was larger past that. When it comes to your extension sizes and how far you're allowed to reach out beyond the robot, you can't go as far this season. The previous season, you can only go 18 inches. In this season, you can only go out 12 inches. And on top of that, you're only allowed to extend one way. So you can only extend one direction at a time. Being said, momentary or super quick exceptions to that are okay. Also, a key note in this is that round sections of a robot are considered to have an infinite number of sides, so you cannot extend beyond that. And FRC does have a quick little table in here. For example, this robot would not be allowed because they're extending to both sides. Yellow, of course, being the robot perimeter, and green being the expansion section. This robot is in non-compliance as well because they're over 2 sides of the robot. Despite having 2 extensions on this point, they are allowed. In this example here, D, this might be something like a robot cable expanding out. That's okay. It's momentary. It's inconsequential. Remember, in the rule book here, momentary is defined as anything less than 3 seconds. E would be okay, but F would not be okay. But if you look at this originally, you think, it kind of looks like it should be okay. But the key point B here being that round sections are considered to have an infinite number of sides. So if you are going over a round section on your robot, it's technically going over multiple sides because there's an infinite side, and that is not allowed. You can only be over one side of your robot. So keep that in mind if you do decide to have some sort of round robot construction or curved robot construction this season. This is an update to the radio power rule as well. You can't use a VRM or RPM to power your radio anymore. Previously, you could because of that transitionary period, but now that transitionary period is done, and you have to power that via your power delivery panel or your power delivery hub, depending on what it is that you are using for your robot. Outside of some of those robot construction rules, There are now some new bumper rules. In 2026, you can now wrap the corners around. So previously, this wrapping around the corner was not an acceptable method of creating a bumper, so now it is, which means you could theoretically have a full constructed piece of foam or a full constructed piece for this wrapping around. Might make designing your bumpers a little bit simpler. There's also an explicit note here on team numbers. Your numbers need to be in at least 3 different spots, at least different 90-degree sections as well. That wasn't previously explicitly stated. It had to be clear what your team name is, but now it's explicit. You have to have at least 3 different spots for your team numbers on your bumpers themselves. Talking about some game or event rules, I think things that will change up the game quite significantly are that there are no longer any protected zones. So in the 2025 season, you had only 1 defender was allowed. In this case, there is no wording that I could find whatsoever that talks about only allowing 1 defender, nor having protected zones. If we talk anything about safe zones or protected zones where opposing alliances are not allowed to enter in, one of those exceptions is during endgame if your robot is connecting to a tower in those last 30 seconds of the match. You are considered safe, and no robot is allowed to contact you while you are connected to a tower. This also includes transitively supported or transitively connected through a game piece itself. Now, keep in mind that when they say this transitively through a game piece, that means that you have a robot, a game piece, and a second robot, and this is now pushing the robot into the tower. That would not be allowed. If you have a robot and then a game piece happens to hit you from a missed shot, that is acceptable contact and is not considered to be a foul. Another point here, similar to Reefscape, is during auto, if you cross that center line, you cannot contact an opposing alliance. So that's technically a safe zone, but it's not really. So what this is going to encourage a lot that I can see is that it's during those alliance shifts during the game, you're going to be allowed to play defense and quite hard, aggressive defense as well. So there's going to be a lot of time to stop your opposing alliance from trying to score during that section. Another kind of minor rule here is that you now have 1 more person allowed in your load-in team. You used to only be allowed 5. Now you're allowed 6 in that load-in. Keep in mind, you still need at least 1 adult. And then we've got a few other super minor changes. Rule 103 has a 12-inch length limit on battery cables, for that way exclusion is gone. It seems to allow for longer battery cable lengths if you want to. If you are going to extend your battery length for this, keep in mind voltage does drop the longer you make your cables. So just make sure that you're throwing in some calculations on that and not making them excessively long as well. For G302, for the driver station items and things you're allowed in, there's now a new height limit of 7 to 8 inches for anything you want to bring in. So you have some sort of strategy board, a whiteboard you're bringing in, whatever that would be. It can only be 78 inches tall. The spirit of the rule is still the same as before. It just simplified its wording. As well, previously when it came to recording consent, you would have to, rule was only explicitly applied to referees. You have to make sure you ask for their consent. But now this is true for all members at an event. You can't record anybody, auditory or video, without first explicitly asking for their permission. It's just a good thing though, and I think this is just a good rule to have in general. So those are all the kind of changes that I've been able to find for the rebuilt Evergreen FRC season. Was there something I missed? Let me know in the comments down below, because there are a lot of changes. These are super dense manuals. I hope I did a pretty good job on covering over this for you. If you're looking for some more inspiration on how you might work on getting an intake or doing some sort of flywheel shooter, I've got a video playlist down below linked that might help you out as well. Keep in mind it is focused in an FTC context. However, the game pieces themselves are pretty similar, and the concepts that are used in these, despite being on smaller scales, can definitely be things that your team can learn from and use to help you guide building your own intakes and your own, if you're going to go with the flywheel style design in this season as well. I'd also suggest your team take a look at the 2017 Steamworks FRC game if you have or have not been in here for a while. It's a very similar game to what this game is, at least in terms of the game piece, the fuel itself. So it's a great starting place to look at how teams were successfully able to intake and launch some of those game pieces as well. So let me know if I missed anything down in the comments below. I'm not always perfect. Sometimes I get things wrong as well, and it's always good to make sure we're clarifying our thoughts. And as always, best of luck out there this season.